Hello. I would like to thank Baroness Brown for her insightful presentation there, laying out the rather daunting scale of the challenges for UK industry, but also highlighting some of the approaches that can help achieve it, um, and some of the support in place to accelerate on the sort of journey to net zero. So in this next session, we were going to examine the impact that the IEEA has on excuse me, some of the impact that the IEA has had so far, before we then hear more from the companies that have taken part. So in order to think about the impact of the programme, we've gone back to the original objectives set by BEIS when the competition was designed, and then we'll summarise against some of these areas in the next 30 minutes or so. So the first objective was to increase energy efficiency, or the range of energy efficiency technologies, by demonstrating them at industrial scale and bringing down the cost. So to do that, we'll be highlighting the range of technologies that have been supported through the programme. The next one was about working with industries to promote the innovations. And that's why we're here today, and various other events that we've undertaken, and we're also talking to many of the industry trade bodies about presenting the results of the case studies. The next one is about leveraging private sector investment. A number of the technology developers have already stated that the reputational benefits of being involved in the programme has a significant impact when they then go to market to raise funds, and there's been some sort of great success doing that. But of course, there's no point in producing these new technologies if they're not taken up in the marketplace. So the next objective is about producing technologies that can achieve sales, ready to achieve sales within 2 years. And I'm pleased to say that that's happened as well. Then there's one about strengthening UK supply chains, and that's been a key part of many of the projects, building and securing strong partnerships with UK suppliers. And the final objective was about securing industrial decarbonisation across a range of sectors and building knowledge, as Mark talked about earlier in the panel discussion. And so we will highlight some of the sheer range of technologies supported, and during the case studies, you'll see some of the sort of the collation of that knowledge that's been developed. Excuse me. So phase one of the IEA kicked off in 2017 with 7 projects commencing in 2018. And then phase 2 started in 2019 with 9 projects, which started in late 2029 or early 2020. The initial rounds of the competition, it's fair to say, were undersubscribed, but by the final window, the programme was oversubscribed with successful applications, and the full £8 million budget was allocated. And that was a significant achievement, really, given the challenge of building consortia that could, with suitable projects at the right stage and that could meet the criteria for the programme. So £8.1 million of grant funding was awarded, and then this also attracted in another £7.6 million of private sector match funding from the project partners. So that's a total investment then of £15 million in investment in demonstration scale deployment. And there's now an increasing number of programs, I think it's fair to say, that are injecting funding into demonstration and deployment. But at the time this started, they were a bit more sparse, with funding sort of more commonly directed to earlier stage R&D. So I think the IEEA has acted as a good exemplar of the sort of funding is needed at higher TRL levels, and also can be successful. And the success of the programme actually, as Mark said, has led BEIS on to proceed with other programmes and also with a further £8 million for the IEA itself. And you can find out more about taking part in that through the resources available through the platform, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. A second success measure has been the number of projects that have progressed successfully through to a successful demonstration from those 16 that started. Because with an innovation program, I don't think you'd expect all of the projects to succeed, either technically or commercially. So I'm delighted that so many of them have reached completion or have nearly reached completion, especially considering the challenges that we've had over the last year or two with COVID-19 impacting supply chains and the companies themselves. So of the 16 projects, 9 are sort of ready to commercialize now with a sort of rollout of full-scale projects. Of these, at least 4 have already made sales. Several others are working on the sort of presenting business cases to their host companies and wider sectors as well. And then some of the other projects have been asked to extend their trials to sort of demonstrate the longer term performance before they may then go on to place orders as well. And of those 7, apart from the 9 projects that are ready to commercialise, of those remaining 7, several of those are still undergoing their demonstration trials, and they've got a positive indication so far as well. So overall, very strong performance from the projects. One of the things I'm really sort of proud of within this program is just the sheer range of companies and technologies that are taking part. Almost all the projects this time round have got an SME technology developer, and where the grant funding really sort of helps bridge that gap between the R&D and being able to be self-sustaining with commercial funding. And then the demonstration sites comprise a really wide range of companies, so ranging from sort of SME plastics and rubber companies to sort of traditional manufacturers in food and drink, and then some of the well-known names. We heard from United Utilities earlier and DS Smith, Aggregate Industries, Severn Trent Water, all part of the programme as well. And of course, they then cover a very wide range of sectors. With processing through from animal waste products and industrial laundries, through data centers, through to utility companies and some of the more traditional industries. And I'm particularly pleased to note that about two thirds of the projects actually are, although they've sort of been demonstrated in one technology area, actually have cross-sectoral potential across a wider range of sectors as well. So that really enhances the long-term carbon saving potential. The projects have already been also sort of cover a wide range of technologies. So there's broadly sort of 10 different technology categories supported. And I just think all this sort of shows that there is technology out there that's an innovation ready to be deployed in industry across all sectors. So, as you sort of heard earlier, please do go out and see what's available for you and see if you can take part in this program or other deployment type programs. One of the key success factors, I think, is not just about this program is not just about delivering money to projects and asking them to report on their progress every quarter, but actually sort of facilitating the project progress as well, and supporting the commercial development as well as the technology development. So this has included support on the project management, which is particularly helpful, I think, for some of the smaller companies and newer companies, bringing in things like detailed risk management approaches. And obviously, there's been incredible challenges with COVID for the companies and their supply chains, and we've been able to work with the companies on their work plans and helping reprogram their sort of schedules for their projects to help get through that. And also sometimes being able to just be a facilitator between the different partners. Obviously, the different partners tend to have maybe different reasons for taking part and different goals from the project in some cases, and so we can help bridge that gap. Another factor is the M&V, the measurement and verification of the projects, which I think is really important. If you're spending £8 million on projects, you really don't want to get to the end of them and find that you haven't measured one of the key variables that means you can't actually say how much it's saved. So we've been, right from the start of the project's been involved in making sure that there are good M&V plans for the companies, and that that the companies have kept to those or kept them updated as there's been changes in the projects. And then the other aspect is about the commercialization of the companies. So we'll come on to that in the next couple of slides. I think over many years of supporting sort of R&D and demonstration within the Carbon Trust and within BEIS, it's increasingly become apparent that it's not just about the technology journey, making sure that there's replication of the technologies that are developed, and that incubation support, sort of commercial support to the companies is important as well. And therefore, within this program and several other programs, there's now incubation or acceleration supports provided to the companies. And that often sort of focuses, sometimes that can help on the sort of technology side, the technical side, but quite often it's focused on the more commercialization aspects of the business, and trying to help identify gaps in the sort of commercial readiness of a company, and helping them to overcome those gaps by providing targeted support. So that can come in various different forms, but the most common, and I've listed those on the slides here, but the most common forms tend to be the sort of strategy and business planning type support, supported by market assessments that maybe the companies just don't have the resources to do themselves, and also commonly investor readiness support is valued as well. So within this program, a needs assessment was undertaken for all the projects across all of those different aspects. I think they all found the exploratory session useful, and then that was used to prioritise the support on different areas and between different companies. And I've just put here some examples of some of the impactful support that's been delivered. Several of the projects have been helped with market research to better understand their target market, examine what other cross-sectoral markets that they could potentially apply to, and also just doing that research has helped identify leads for some of their companies and helped influence their business strategy. One of the companies has where they've got potential to influence, use their sort of longer supply chain to influence their potential customers. So some work was done understanding their end user customers, which are retailers in this particular example, to sort of understand the drivers that they have, and that then work through the supply chain so they could work out whether they want more of a push or a pull type business strategy, and also understand what they need to do in terms of sort of carbon footprinting their product, because that to help with their engagement through that supply chain. Another company was keen building on their commercial interest that they'd had for their technology in China, and we were able to help them with looking at both on the supply side alternative supply chain options, and also some support with introductions to potential new customers. And then one of the other companies examples we've got is offering some legal support with licensing options to one of the companies, where their IP is very important and needs to be protected, but they also want to make revenue out of allowing access to that IP. So some support provided there. But I suppose interestingly, many of the companies that took part in the IEEA phases 1 and 2 actually were quite mature as technology innovators go in terms of their commercial progress. They'd already reached TRLs of 5 to 7, so they've been having to raise funding and be visible in the market even to get to that stage. So often actually it's been the marketing support that's been particularly useful to companies, and the program's been able to give exposure to some of the companies and their technologies that might normally be difficult to achieve for projects of this size and companies of this size. So that's included highlighting the projects highlighting individual projects within the overall program marketing, such as some of the press releases and some of the social media that the program does, featuring project profiles and case studies for the projects on a dedicated IEEA web hub, which we'll signpost later, but is carbontrust.com/IEEA. And there's links to that through the resources on the screen. And we've also invited the participants in the programme to take part in various programme events, both those organised directly by the Carbon Trust and also some that where we've been asked to talk at industry events, and we've brought along some of the industry partners to join that discussion. And we've also produced, I suppose, one of the areas that through the assessments we found is fairly new to some of them, some but not all of the companies, is social use of social media. And so we did some work to produce a guide and a webinar on sort of starting out on social media for the companies, which I think they found useful and started taking on board. So just a few other examples here of how the IEEA has benefited some of the companies taking part. The University of Hull has been producing a variety of PR for their new dew point cooler system for data centers. EWS down here have produced a new website to show off some of the technologies that they've been developing, the technology they've been developing through the program. G2O and Surface Generation, we'll hear more from later. They joined me to speak at some webinars and events that we've been promoting through the program. And then a number of the companies, for example, Agritech Systems Limited here, have been able to post their case study on the IEEA website. So we'll continue to support their projects as they publish their case studies over the next few weeks and promote their case studies and the results following this event. And then just to sort of go back to some of the objectives that I mentioned at the start and look at some of the sort of numerical measures associated with those. The participants so far, and some of the projects are still, as I said, are still carrying on, but have generated over 270 new business relationships and collaborations. They've created over 20 new jobs and obviously maintained many more within the technology companies through the program. I mentioned that the program had leveraged £7.6 million of private sector funding, but many of the companies have gone on to then raise further follow-on funding. So the running count of that at the moment is about £13 million of follow-on funding. And at least 4 of the companies have made sales, with sort of 10 confirmed sales so far. But perhaps the most important element here is the TRL, the technology readiness level, where because that's sort of fundamental to what this program is about. And we estimate that 10 of the projects have now progressed their technology from a TRL of between 5 and 7 at the start, up to 8 or 9 now, and are now sort of ready for further scale up and rollout. And then of the other projects, they're still continuing as well. So although their rollout has been delayed somewhat and there's still some deployment and monitoring going on, we expect most of those also to progress up that TRL curve as well. So that's some sort of wider program impacts that I've talked about, and I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Andrew Moore from Jacobs to talk about the energy and carbon impacts of the project. And Jacobs are the technical lead on the program, so they've been working very closely with us, and Andrew's been very involved in these projects right from the start. Over to you, Andrew.
Thanks for the introduction, Paul. So in the next few slides, I'm going to discuss some of the impacts of the program. So the demonstrations have allowed for the validation of savings, and they've all been at various scales. So absolute savings, the percentage savings and replication potential are all relevant. I'm going to come to some examples of these shortly, and as Paul said earlier, we're going to hear from some of the projects themselves later in the event today and tomorrow. So are they an insect technology with a step change energy saving, or those that have got wide cross-sector reach? There's also ease of implementation. Is it a retrofit project? Is it rollout based on replacement cycles and so forth? It's been really important to understand the replication potential, and this was a key component of the application stage and the assessment process before we selected projects. As Paul said, these have been supported in developing these further through the demonstration itself, incubation support and the final reporting. So taking this information, it's allowed us to model the potential impact of these projects over a 10-year period. So I'll come to some of the example savings. So I want to start with a couple of examples here which have had wide replication potential. So this is where the technology is applicable across many sectors. So taking here Spirex Sarco, this was a new measurement device for boiler water quality and potential saving of 6%, and obviously wide applicability across industry, any steam boiler users. Magnumatics was an alternate motor technology. It's achieving direct drive without gear pulley systems, and here around 15% saving, but again it's that cross-sector replication. So some projects where maybe smaller percentage savings but really wide replication potential. Moving to sector specific, where it's a specific technology but there's large quantity of assets in use. So both of these are in similar sector where individual sites have got multiple machines. Surface generation, a moulding technology for the rubber and plastic sector. It's a great example of a small absolute saving in terms of the demonstration, because it was demonstrated on a single moulding machine, but a very large percentage energy reduction with kind of fantastic potential for replication because of cycle time reduction. And then matrix moulding solutions and plastic moulding sector, it's reduced the operating temperatures and pressures through improving flow of material. 34% savings achieved, but here the ability to retrofit the equipment to a large proportion of existing presses, so again increasing that replication potential. So moving to a couple of examples which here are from the paper sector where it's very specific to the process. In this case, it's the drying process, the largest component of energy consumption in the paper mills. With rising Ventia, they're using instrumentation to improve water quality and monitoring, which is improving the dewatering process, reducing energy for drying, so around a 10% saving. And then Pitter, using a digital solution that enables optimization of the drying process. Again, that's enabling around 5% savings with further opportunities to explore. And then a final example, which is very product specific. So this is development of a low carbon cement, which was led by the Mineral Products Association. Potential for a 12% CO2 reduction, replication here being associated to the uptake of the final product. So they're all very different, and why absolute savings, kind of percentage savings in the actual demonstration and replication potential are all relevant in looking at the benefits of these projects. So moving on to replication, and some of the projects have got immediate opportunity to replicate within the host company. The technology is known to the demonstration company, confidence has been built, it's easier to adopt, they've got a head start, whilst the technology developer is expanding its customer base. Innovatium is a good example here. It's applicable to compressed air systems, and the host company will be the first to see it. They'll have on-site validation of the benefits, and they're considering how it could be potentially rolled out within their organisation. In some cases, we've got trials which are continuing beyond the demonstration and supporting building a business case. So G2O here deployed a water treatment technology to an industrial laundry, and they're finalising trials beyond the energy efficiency work they've done, but also looking at chemical additive benefits, and this is all feeding into a potential wider business case. Another great benefit with some of the projects is the ability to actually bring customers to see the actual demonstration, and in this case, LAT Water had a water treatment technology at a landfill site, where it's been possible for potential customers to walk the plant, see it in action. And for this project, they're continuing longer term trials, looking at permitting requirements. And so moving to the benefits, whilst the core focus of the programme has been on energy efficiency, there are other benefits which can be obtained, and they all significantly enhance the business case and the likelihood for replication. We have some projects that have improved cycle times, which depending on the process might mean less assets required, so therefore replacement strategies to newer technologies have a stronger business case. Agritech, a lower energy intensive process for animal byproduct processing. It's a smaller scale deployment, so it can be located as an end of line installation, and therefore it removes the need for transportation to large-scale processing centres, and we've a few projects where there's been a transportation element that's a further benefit that the project delivers. And then the final example here for maintenance savings. So evergreen water systems have demonstrated an alternate low-speed dewatering technology in the wastewater sector. It's compared to high-speed centrifuge technology, so whilst the project itself delivers a significant energy benefit, it also gives reduction in maintenance interventions, so therefore reducing both the cost and downtime associated with maintenance. So I talked earlier about taking the benefits of the projects and looking at the potential rollout over a 10-year timeframe. The chart here shows the aggregated view of the projects, showing by year 10 close to 1.8 megatons carbon dioxide per year savings, equivalent to energy savings of around 7 terawatt hours per year. At the moment, this includes a combination of projects which have completed their demonstration and the benefits and rollout data is being finalised. Some of the projects which are in the final stages of the programme are using indicative results at this stage. Clearly, all the projects have to make assumptions of their uptake and replication, but we've worked with them to support this. Projects have differing levels of timeframes to move from end of demonstration to commercialisation. So the clear S-curve on the chart here is driven by this development of uptake and then slowing for a variety of reasons, be it market saturation or other further developed technologies replacing them. So the final chart here takes all this information and looking at the cumulative savings. It shows the significance of the programme and being able to potentially deliver around 10 megatons CO2 over a 10-year horizon. This is equivalent to energy savings of around 40 terawatt hours over that same timeframe. And as Mark Taylor referenced in his keynote address this morning, the significance of this over the length or the potential over the next 10-year time horizon. We recognise this is dependent upon the rollout of the technologies, but the programme establishes them in a position of being demonstrated and supported in their deployment plans to have the best potential to be replicated, and the scale of the benefits here is clear. So thank you for joining myself and Paul to hear about the impacts of the programme. Coming up next, please join my colleague Sabrina, who will be hosting a session on sectorial insights from phase 1 and 2 demonstration projects. It's going to be really great and exciting to hear from some of our projects.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I'm just going to, while you were talking, there was a question came in, which was, all the projects so far have been based in England. Is this program also applicable in Scotland? And I just want to say yes, it is. It's available throughout the UK, and it was. We were disappointed not to end up with any projects in Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland. There were some projects that we were talking to through the process, and there were a couple that applied, but unfortunately didn't make it. But we're really keen for the next phase of the IEA to bring in projects from as wide a geography as possible. So definitely encourage any companies, industrial companies, or the technology innovators based in Scotland or indeed Wales and Northern Ireland to get in touch with us, and we can have a discussion about your projects and how to bring them into the programme. So that's the end of this session, and after the mini break, we'll come back to Sabrina, who will take us through the case studies. Thank you.